It's time for Waking Up with Wesley. Today's forecast and weather-wide discussion with WLOX First Alert Weather Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams.
Waking Up with Wesley is sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for waking up with Wesley. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. So, if you are awake, then that means maybe you had a pretty good night of sleep last night. Maybe those thunderstorms didn't rattle you too much. Or you're like me and you just couldn't sleep through the bad weather and your tank is running on empty. But we're here, we're smiling, it's a new day, and fortunately it's not storming right now. But that's what we're going to talk about in this video update for this Tuesday, is that we are going to discuss how we probably have not completely escaped these summertime storms. We could still see more of them developing as we go into the next several days, along with plenty of June heat. We're also going to take a look back at yesterday because, man, that was quite some weather that some of us went through, even some severe weather too. So let's take a look at this time lapse from last night in Biloxi. This was a time-lapse video at the IP Casino Resort and Spa during the 9 o'clock time frame Monday night. And you can see the rain pouring, the rain blowing sideways because it was so windy, and of course the basically constant stream of lightning flashing in the sky. Quite a harrowing experience for anyone who had to drive through that. You can see some of the cars down there driving on I-110. Probably not the ideal driving conditions. So it was very rainy, and unfortunately, severe weather was reported. We do have a map that shows some of those severe weather reports right here. Over the last 24 hours, you can see that these are the areas where you see those little icons on the map where severe weather was reported locally. Many of those reports were in Harrison County, apparently. That doesn't mean that severe weather didn't happen elsewhere. It just means that if it did, it wasn't reported to local authorities or the National Weather Service. So if you are living in a county that's not Harrison County and you experienced storm damage from last night's storms, it'd be a good idea to reach out to the National Weather Service or your local law enforcement and make that report of severe weather. And that way, that information will be passed along to the rest of the community. But as far as those reports that we do have access to, take a look at this. There was a tree down reported near Lyman last night. The Gulfport Airport clocked a wind gust speed of 66 miles per hour. That is some extremely strong wind from a thunderstorm, and that could easily knock a tree down, cause a power outage when you get those winds. That's why those severe thunderstorm warnings are issued, to warn you of the potential for damaging wind gusts like that one. There was also street flooding reported in Gulfport down near Highway 90 and near Courthouse Road, according to the information we have available to us from the National Weather Service. And you know, it's no surprise that it was flooding in parts of Gulfport because it was a record-setting rain day. They picked up 3 3/34 of an inch of rain yesterday, completely shattering the old record of 1 64/100 of an inch of rain. So now we can all say we lived through a historic day. We lived through the rainiest June 9th ever recorded in Gulfport. And they've been keeping weather records since the 1890s. So that's a lot of June 9ths to compare to, hundreds of them. One other thing that happened with that number, not only did it smash the daily highest rainfall record for June 9th, but it was also just flat out the rainiest day of this year so far. I think I saw one other day in June, or either it was earlier this month or last month, that had a similar 3-inch rain total, but this one did beat that. So that was the rainiest day of the entire year so far. But of course also the rainiest June 9th ever recorded. A very impressive stat to pick up. So it's no surprise that there was flooding from that. Now we have some maps that I do want to pull up that shows some of the rest of the rain totals. What that 3.34 you're looking at is a measurement from an observed weather station. Water fell into a gauge and it was measured. That's an observation. So it's not what you're looking at here, which is an estimation. This is a look at numbers that are estimated just based off of what the radar information looks like. So the rain based on radar estimates look like this, where you're seeing those numbers generally around 2 to 3 inches in southern Harrison County. And then there were some places near Ocean Springs that picked up more than 4, maybe even more than 5 inches of rain. Now that's because they actually had a double feature. They had a double whammy yesterday. They had a thunderstorm, pretty heavy one in the morning on Monday, and then they got hit by a second thunderstorm, obviously the big one that many of us had last night. So with 2 big heavy downpours in one day, that's how they got that rain total to get so high in just a short amount of time compared to everyone else. Now you zoom the map out and you'll notice that the rain from Monday and Monday night was a little bit less over toward Louisiana and definitely more into Alabama. In fact, there were some places with rain totals of bigger than 7 inches in areas to the northeast of Mobile. So certainly they saw flooding issues there. If we saw flooding in parts of Gulfport, they definitely did. Now, fortunately, the first alert radar this morning doesn't show as much of a widespread rain setup, but there are still some showers and storms to be had, and we're going to explain why that is. But before we do, let's take a look at this morning's, I think I have the sunrise time lapse just to show you the difference a day makes. You know, we had that video earlier with the lightning flashing, and now look at this time lapse video of just a peaceful sunrise. So Tuesday morning, already off to a nicer start than yesterday, as we are looking at just a pretty peaceful morning here, even though there are some showers and storms around, but none during the sunrise time frame there. The forecast for today calling for more of those summertime pop-up storms. These will primarily occur in the PM hours, so that's at any point between noon and 11:59 p.m. 12-hour window of some generally higher rain chances in our local area. And I think we stand a good chance to pick up new rain amounts of 1 to 2 inches in some places. And that could be enough rain to unfortunately trigger flooding in a few spots too, because that's, you know, a pretty hefty rain total compared to what's already on the ground. Now, meanwhile, temperatures are going to rise to the upper 80s and maybe a few spots get to near 90. Of course, this depends on how long the rain waits to form. Yesterday, we were expecting rain in the afternoon and evening, and for many of us, it waited all the way till at night. So that allowed the temperature to go way up to 90, maybe even the lower 90s. But if the rain happens before you reach that hottest part of the day, before 2 or 3 p.m., then maybe you won't hit some of these numbers and the temperature might fall below the forecast. So this is a look at what we're tracking. We still have to get into the why this pattern is this way, this pattern of higher rain chances, and that will be toward the end of this video. But we do want to briefly, before we get to the why, give you the first alert that there could be some flooding today in parts of the area. That chance for rain about 50 to 70%, and the scattered thunderstorms primarily during the afternoon. This is a look at the surface map, the weather map showing a stalled front along the Gulf Coast and the rest of the cool front and low pressure system up toward the northwest. We are tapping into that Gulf warmth, that Gulf humidity, and that's going to set the stage for rain showers to develop. That stalled front nearby is a feature that will assist in rain being easier to form along our Gulf Coast region today. Today we have a level 1 out of 4 risk of flooding. If you remember yesterday we had a level 2 out of 4 risk of flooding. So today's risk of flooding is not as high as yesterday. That means there's not as high of a probability of flooding as yesterday. But it's not zero, right? So it is something to still pay attention to. And like you saw, some places have 2 to 4, maybe 2 to 5 inches of rain yesterday. The ground is soaked, it's saturated, and it does not take much more rain to cause flooding in such a situation. Now, new this morning, we are looking at that level 1 risk of severe weather that has expanded to the entirety of the Mississippi coast. If you were watching GMM much earlier today during the 4 o'clock hour or 4:30 half hour, we showed this map, and the level 1 area only touched like Hancock County. But when the Storm Prediction Center did their 8 a.m. update, they expanded it to include more areas. So now it's the entirety of the Mississippi coast under the level 1 risk of damaging storms at any point on Tuesday and Tuesday night. So some of the thunderstorms that we see could produce gusty winds, small hail, frequent lightning, and heavy rain that could lead to flooding with torrential downpours. So now we get into the why this pattern is this way. And in order to understand that, we have to kind of go up from the surface. We showed you the surface weather map, but now we're going to go upstairs in the air to the levels aloft that help to determine the overall weather pattern for the region. So while I load that information, bear with me. I think I've got it all loaded. Okay, so first of all, let's start with the temperature map. So here's a question: where do you see some of the coolest temperatures on this map? And while you could answer Seattle, you could answer Boston, the zone I'm focusing on is near Detroit, a temperature of 64, Chicago, a temperature of 63. That area is where there's this upper low, this upper disturbance, a dip in the jet stream, situated near Michigan today. And those types of features like to move from west to east, but this one can't because there's a blocking Bermuda high that is situated just off to its east. So this upper disturbance, this Michigan or Canada low, it can't just move directly from west to east. Instead, it's going to have to move to the north or northeast up over that ridge of Bermuda high pressure. And that makes all the difference for us, because that means we won't be able to get all of these features to move eastward, and we won't be able to cash in on the generally drier air that is sitting behind this system that could will be lovely to come all the way down to the Gulf Coast, but we won't be able to cash in on that. Also, there's another weaker upper disturbance near New Mexico that's also slowly moving eastward. And in general, as long as the Mississippi coast stays to the east of kind of this line that I've drawn here in upper trough, we are going to stay with kind of unsettled weather because there's a lot of moisture to tap into. So remember I said there's a lot of dry air behind that low. Well, if you again, imagine the low pressure here. Remember, wind flows counterclockwise around a low, so that's why you're seeing this drier air coming in from the west to the east, from the north to the south, and there's just not enough moisture to make rain there. But where we are on the Gulf Coast, remember there's this high, this Bermuda high situated here, and around the high pressure, wind circulation is clockwise, so we are seeing that wind from the Gulf pulling in the warmth and the humidity and the wetness that makes it easier for rain showers to develop. So that's why on this computer modelized rain projection, you're going to see that rain forming in parts of the Gulf Coast region today. So as you can see, that it does show, if we put our low back on the map, anywhere that is generally east of that low, you're seeing all of this rain forming. And then remember, we had that other weaker disturbance near New Mexico, and the same thing's happening there, where generally east of that, you're seeing rain forming. But if you are off to the west of those features, that's where the drier air is. The drier air to the west of this low from Minnesota to Missouri, and another batch of drier air to the west of this low near Utah and Arizona. So that explains why we have those rain chances today, in addition to those surface features like the stalled front nearby. So hopefully that helps you to understand Why this pattern probably won't be going anywhere anytime soon, because that big low, that big disturbance near Canada, is kind of going to only move very slowly over the next several days. And so that won't really help us to change the setup, meaning we'll just continue to see a couple of different things. We'll either see some pop-up summertime storms, or we may also see some of these disturbances like the one that is currently over Texas. They're going to be rolling in this general fashion, and some of that energy from those disturbances might come closer to our Mississippi coast and cause us to see an increase in rain coverage at times. So there's a look at your forecast into the next 3 days as we wrap up this edition of Waking Up with Wesley. You'll notice that each day has that potential for summertime storms, and that's day and night, mind you. Even though it's a 3-day forecast, we obviously have nights. Nights exist too, and that potential for rain will be both in the day and the night at any point over the next 2 to 3 days. We could see the summertime storms in addition to that daytime June heat. So hopefully you are enjoying what pattern we have now, because if you are, then that means there's more to come that you are going to like, as it's not going to change very quickly throughout the middle of this week. Well, that'll do it for our Tuesday edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I hope that you have a terrific Tuesday as we gear up for a nice and hot one. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. Take care. We'll see you again next time.
Waking Up with Wesley has been sponsored by Exclusive Auto Brokers. For the best deals on wheels, visit Exclusive Auto Brokers on Beatline Road in Long Beach.